Let's go to the Fin review. PM sets path to zero emissions. Scott Morrison has all but locked in a commitment to achieve net zero emissions by 2050 by starting to detail how it could be achieved and the benefits for those industries which lead the way, speaking to a Business Council of Australia dinner in Sydney last night ahead of participating in this week's Greenhouse Summit being hosted by US President Joe Biden. Mr Morrison outlined the types of technological advances to enable net zero to be reached. Do you think Biden and Johnson in the UK and certainly Xi Jinping in China are getting into the Prime Minister's ear about this issue?
He can see that these decisions are being made by other world leaders, Gleeson. I think you're alluding to and hitting the nail on the head here that he wants to go with these other international leaders and not be left behind. And it'll put a few naysayers to rest for a little while, although you'll hear the usual suspects like those from the Greens and the left saying it's not quick enough and we need to be committing to emissions targets by 2030. But this is a sensible move, really, ultimately by the Prime Minister to go along with his international counterparts and not be left behind. It's good to be talking about other issues for a moment, isn't it, Glee? So it's just been dominated by the pandemic and it's been dominated at the moment with lots of problems within the bubble in Canberra. And here we are talking about some other issues and some other paths forward, whether it even be, as you said before, the good news in regards to establishing a Royal Commission into veteran suicide. These are real world issues and real problems that the Australian people are looking for some sort of leadership from the Morrison government. So with that in mind, the fact he's started to make some overtures around net zero emissions by 2050, a budget that he's going to produce in the coming weeks, which will obviously have a focus on what the findings of the Royal Commission into aged care will be, how much money will be thrown at trying to fix that broken system. You get an appreciation for the headaches at the moment that the government of the day is grappling with, and this is a big test for the government right now to see what solutions they come up with and whether or not the Australian people buy into it.
The Herald Sun splash, an interesting one, lost year. Many children don't know alphabet and can't count to 20 after face-to-face learning halted during Victoria's lockdown. Victorian children as old as 7 have started the school year without knowing the alphabet or being able to count to 20 after a tumultuous school year lost to lockdowns. Melton West Primary School teacher Nicole Douglas, who is working as a tutor at the school, said pupils fell behind during lockdown as some parents were unable to support them with remote learning. Gee, that's grave, isn't it?
It is. It's an indictment, though, I think, on the parents ultimately. There'll be plenty of people tomorrow. I imagine the talkback lines in Victoria will be dominated by this issue. But if your 7-year-old can't count to 20 or cannot recite the alphabet from A to Z, I think that falls back on mum and dad's shoulders more than anything, because that's where education starts, in the home. And the finger will be pointed, obviously, at school teachers, and probably some people are looking for a little cop-out here to say, well, we were so busy during the pandemic, we've been in lockdown and we weren't able to pay that attention to little Johnny or little Sally. Well, that's why your mum and your dad, that's why you decide to have children, and you need to invest in your own children's education and their success, and that obviously comes down to helping your son or your daughter when they're at home as well. So that, to me, doesn't really pass the pub test, Glee, so that 7-year-olds aren't able to recite the alphabet or count to 20. And I'd have a good look at mum and dad before going to blame the education system, whether that be in Victoria, Queensland, WA or anywhere else for that matter.